Hello guys, welcome to the exam rat. So let's just start with our new unit geometry and with the new chapter Euclid's geometry. Before that, for more such videos, just subscribe and go through our website, and for in case of any doubts and queries you can just comment below. Okay. Okay guys, so start with the Euclid's geometry. So basically what is the Euclid's geometry is. Okay, so basically first of all we have to learn about this unit geometry. Okay, in case of geometry you will understand about various things like lines, points, line segments, circles, triangles, about the different shapes, about how are they constructed, and about all those things you will going to learn in geometry unit. Okay, so let's just start with the first chapter of geometry unit, that is Euclid's geometry. So basically what is this Euclid's geometry? So Euclid, he was a mathematician, okay, who was like the father of geometry. He was the father of geometry, and Euclid just gave some postulates, axioms, and also some definitions according to which the geometry is basically studied. So this is what we called as a Euclid's geometry, and that is why the geometry is known as the Euclid's geometry, because he was the father of the geometry. Okay, and he also gave certain other phenomena, postulates that we have to study in this particular chapter. So let's just go through these things, that what are those postulates, what are those axioms, and what are those definitions which the Euclid has given, so that we people can easily learn the basic concepts of the geometry, right? So let's just start with our first slide, that is the Euclid's geometry, that is the Euclid's definition. Okay, so we'll go with the Euclid's definition. There are few definitions which the Euclid gave to us, on the basis of which we basically study a particular shape, a particular structure, a particular surface, and many other things. Okay, so let's just start with our first definition. Our first definition is a point has no part or dimension. Okay, so I'll just explain you guys with the help of the example, right? So for example, this is a point, right? This is a point. Can you see any dimension or any part of this point? This point is just a single dot. There is nothing kind of a dimension, surface of this point. It is a normal dot. Okay, so this is what he has taught us in our first definition, that a point has no part or a dimension. It is just a point, a single point, right? A single dot. The second is a line has no breadth. Okay, so let's just draw a line. This is a line, this is a normal line. So breadth is something that is the width of a particular structure. In case of line, can you see any breadth here? Can you see any width here in this particular line? This is a line. You can't see any breadth here. That is what he explained in the second Euclid's definition, that a line has no breadth. Then third is ends of the line are points. Basically this is a line, there are the certain endings where the line just ends. These endings, they are known as the points. So we can also say it like this, that basically a line is a line drawn between the 2 points. We can also say it like this, that a line is drawn between the 2 points, right? Line is drawn between the 2 points. That is why we call the two endings of the line as the points. Then the fourth will be a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. So basically this is a straight line. So it basically means that there are certain points on the straight lines which are in a line form. Like I told you in the linear equations in one variable, then when we plot a graph we get 2-3 points in a certain line. When we join these 2-3 points we get a single line. This is what he meant from his fourth definition, that a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. Okay, so let's just now move forward with the fifth definition of the Euclid's geometry. The fifth definition is a surface has a length and breadth only. Okay, so we'll start with the surface. What is a surface is? Okay, So surface is basically any two-dimensional surface is a two-dimensional figure. It is a 2D figure. We call a 2D figure as a surface. So let's just take any 2D figure. For example, we are taking the rectangle as a 2D figure. So in this case, this is the length of the rectangle and this is the breadth. There is no height, only length and breadth of the rectangle are there. That is where he called from his Euclid's definition number 5 that a surface has both length and breadth, no height is there. Okay, so these are the pictures. You can just see from these pictures that this is a line, this is a point, it has no breadth, the point has no dimensions or part, the surface has only length and breadth. This is the length and this is the breadth of surface. Then a solid. Okay, so what do you mean by a solid? A solid is basically a 3D figure. We call solid a 3D figure. It can be cube, it can be cuboid, it can be sphere, it can be hemisphere, it can be a cone, frustum, anything. Okay, so just leave this. We can get back to the sixth definition of the Euclid's geometry, that the edges of the surface are line. This is the surface, these are the edges. So these edges, they are basically the lines. You can see these are the edges, these edges are basically the lines. So these are the lines. So that is what he meant from his fifth definition, that these are the edges and edges are basically the lines of the 2D figure or of the surface. A plane surface is a surface which lies evenly with a straight line on itself. Okay, so this is the few definitions of the Euclid's geometry. These are basically, these are the important definition because they form the basic concept of the geometry. They are the basic concept of the geometry. If you don't know about these definition, you won't be able to solve the questions of geometry. You won't be able to recognize or understand any type of shape. To recognize or understand any type of shape, you just have to go through these basic concepts and know what is this surface is, what is line, point, curve. Okay, this is the line, this is the point. Surface is a two-dimensional figure and solid is a three-dimensional figure, which we call that a cube, cuboid, sphere, anything. So this is basically a 3D figure, or we can call it as a solid, right? So this is a cube present here. We can just say that these are the corners of the cube, which we called it as the points. So this is the particular surface, like this is a two-dimensional picture of the cube. So this is a surface and this surface has length and a particular breadth, right? This is the length and breadth of this surface, and this surface is made up of some lines. The edges of this surface, they are known as lines. So from this picture you can easily understand these few terms, that what exactly is surface, what exactly is curve, what is point, what is line, what is solid, and what are the basic features of these things. So this is what the Euclid geometry is. Okay, let's just now move forward and know some postulates in exam. Before that, we can just start with like what is postulate and what are exams and why we have to study these things in this particular chapter, right? So first of all, we'll start with the postulates. So postulate is basically the Euclid made certain in assumptions or like certain phenomena in the mathematics. Okay, so postulates are basically those assumptions which are only linked to the geometry. He made those assumptions which are only specific to, or they were only like they are only corresponding to the geometry. Okay, so this is what he just told in the postulates. They are only specific to the geometry part, right? So let's just now move forward towards the axioms. These are the axioms and they are basically those assumptions which he made for the whole mathematic, irrespective of the geometry or any other chapter. He just used these assumptions in the whole mathematics. So these are the assumptions he used in all of the mathematics, and postulates are those assumptions which he used in the geometry only. Okay, so this is what you have to study about postulates. There are many axioms. In the case of the Euclid has given many axioms, but in your class 9th you just have to study about few exams, and that will be given in my next slide, that what are those exams and how can we just I can explain them to you with the help of certain pictures and all. So, and there are 5 postulates of the Euclids that you will study in class 9th, and these 5 postulates they will be like very important to know the basic concept of the geometry, and after just understanding this basic concept we can then just went through the other things like triangles, circles, constructions and other chapters of the geometry too. So before that you just have to like read about these postulates in exam, and also just note it down that this is a theoretical chapter. You just has to know the basic concept of geometry through this chapter. There are no like certain questions or numericals you have to solve in this chapter. You just have to study and read the theory of this chapter deeply, so that you can better understand from this chapter, right? So you don't have to face any kind of problem in the other chapters of geometry like triangles, circles and all. That's why you just have to study certain theory in this chapter, right? So I'll just tell you again that what are postulates and what are axioms. Basically postulates are those assumptions which the Euclid made were specific to the geometry. They were specific to the geometry. They were only related to the geometry. They were only related to the geometry, right? Then axioms, these are those terms which can be used in whole mathematics. They can be used in whole mathematics. They can be geometry, they can be probability, they can be number line, they can be real number, they can be algebra, they can be anything. So axiom include all of them, and it only includes the geometry within it, right? This is what we call as postulates in exam. There is nothing to like understand in this. You just have to go through the next slide where we'll learn about certain Euclid's axioms. So there are many Euclid's axiom, and so out of that only 4 Euclid's axioms you have to learn. These are the important one. So I suggest you people to write it down in your notebook so that you people could better understand, and you can just like know the things, because writing down just can increase the retaining capacity and all. That is why you just can write it down, and in case of any queries and doubt you can just comment below. Me and my team were there, and we can definitely explain you things if you can't able to understand anything, right? So let's just start with this, that Euclid's important axioms. So the first axiom is things equal to the same thing are equal to the each other. Now let's just take an example. For example, this is Geeta. She is equal to Sita. I am just taking a normal example. Just have to take like this. You can also take the alphabet instead of this Geeta, Sita. I'm just taking a random example. Okay, and the Sita is also equal to Babita. So according to this first Euclid axiom, things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. As you can see, Geeta is equal to Sita, and Sita is also equal to Babita. So basically, indirectly, Geeta is also equal to Babita. This is what the first axiom tell about, that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then indirectly A is also equals to C. If anything is equal to the anything and this particular thing is also equal to some another thing, then those two things are also equals to each other. It basically means that A will be equals to B is equals to the C. Okay, this is what the first axiom say, right? The second is the thing that coincides with one another are always equal to each other. In this particular axiom, the coincide term means the similar, which are similar to each other, which are equal to each other. They are basically equals to each other. This is what the Euclid trying to say in this particular axiom. Okay, then third is the very important one. If the equals are added to equals, wholes are equal. So this is little bit confusing, but it is very easy. So let's just now have a look. For example, this is A, it is equals to B, right? Now the D is also equals to E. So this particular thing means that if the equals are added with equals, so A plus D, if it is added, and B plus E is added. So as you can see from this particular thing that A is equals to B and D is equals to E. So it means when you add both of them, then their whole or their additive, they will also become equal to each other. This is what the Euclid is trying to say in this particular axiom, right? The fourth is just the opposite of the third one. The fourth means that if A is equals to B and D is equals to C, then A minus D will be equals to B minus C. Okay, if the equals are subtracted from equals, it means that A is equals to B and D is equals to C. So अगर दोनों के दोनों equal होते हैं and if they are subtracted from each other, तो उनका जो subtract करके product आएगा, that will also be equal to each other. Their remainder would be equal. Okay, then last is the whole is greater than a part. Okay, let's just take an example. This is a square and this is just there is a part of this square like this. So you can easily see which one is greater. Obvious सी बात है that whole will be greater than the part. So let's just now take another example. For example, you are taking the example of a pizza, right? The pizza we people eat. Okay, so in the case of pizza, the whole pizza, this is the whole pizza. I'm just bad at drawing, you people can understand. This is the pizza. It is obviously greater than the single quarter or the one single piece of the pizza, right? So this is what he is trying to say, that the whole is greater than the part. The whole pizza is greater than the just the part of the pizza. Okay, so let's just now explain them more clearly with the help of the example so that you people could understand this better, right? So this is the Euclid's axiom using the diagrams. I just use certain diagrams to explain you people. So the first is the things which are equal to the same things are equal. Okay, so this is a rectangle, let it be A, and this is a particular square which is equals to B. This is also the same square we have seen above, and this is a triangle, we can name it as C. So if A is equals to B and B is also equals to C, then A will be equals to C. This is what he was trying to say. Okay, now the next thing is whole is greater than the part. The postulate number 5, this is the whole and this is the part. Obviously this is greater than this part, and as I already explained you with the help of the pizza, you people can better understand this thing, that a whole circular pizza is greater than the normal quadrant piece of the pizza. Okay, so this is what he is trying to say in this, and let me just write it down. This is the whole pizza. It is obviously greater than this particular piece of pizza, right? So this is the axiom number 5. Okay, this is the axiom number 1. Okay, now let's just move towards this axiom number 3, that if we add the equals in the equals, then the whole will be equal. Okay, so the given is that AB is equals to DE and BC is equals to EF. Okay, so since AB is equals to DE, this particular portion will be equal to each other, and since this BC is also equals to EF, this particular portion is equal. So this is very obvious that the sum of both of them will also be equivalent, right? That is, for example, if we are taking this line is AB and this line is equals to this line, that is DE. Okay, now we are taking another line, that is BC, and that is equivalent to EF, right? If we add both of these terms, obviously their whole product or their whole additive will also be equal. It means AB plus DE, AB plus BC will be equals to DE plus EF. Why so? Because AB is already equals to DE and BC is already equal to the AF. So this is what the exams of the Euclids are. They are very easy, so let's just revise them out, that what are the exams. Okay, so basically these are the exams which are related to the whole mathematics. They are not at all related with only geometry, they are meant for whole mathematics, right? So first is things equal to the same things are equal to each other. You can easily remind it with the help of A equals to B equals to C. Things that coincide with one another are equal to each other, where the coincide is just similar to the similar or equal term. Then if equals are added to equal, the wholes are equal. If the equals are subtracted from equals, the remainders are equal, and the whole is greater than the parts. These are the 5 exams in your syllabus, and you just have to study about them only. Let's just now move forward with some another important topic, that is Euclid's postulate, right? Okay, so what are Euclid postulate? As I have explained you in the earlier slides, that postulates are the assumptions which are only related to the geometry. They are meant for the geometry, they are specific to the geometry, right? So let's just start with them. So our first Euclid postulate, there are 5 Euclid's postulates. You have to just keep them in your mind, right? So your first Euclid postulate is a straight line can be drawn from any point to any point. Let's just suppose we have this point as A and we have this point as D, right? So basically this we can just draw a line here joining these points as we did in the linear equations in the variable. So this is what it meant, that you can just make any line by joining the 2 points. These are the 2 points, and we make a line that AD is the line between the 2 points A and D. Okay, so our next postulate, this is the postulate number 1. This is the postulate number 1. Let's just now move forward towards postulate number 2. You don't need to worry, people. I'll just show you some pictures so that you people could better understand about these postulates, right? So our second postulate is a terminated line can be produced indefinitely. So what is a terminated line actually mean? A terminated line means the line, like this is AD, this is AB. Okay, so terminated line means the line which ends at the ending point. So this is the line which ends at B. So this is what we called as a terminating line. So it can be produced indefinitely. It is up to you. If a line is like terminated at point B, you can just exceed that line to whatever extent you can. Okay, so this is what the second postulate is. The third is it is possible to describe a circle with any center, or to draw a circle with any center. Like this is the point and this is the point. You can easily draw the circle by pointing the compass at this certain point and taking a specific radius and open the compass and then just draw a circle like this, right? You can draw the circle from this point too, and you can draw the circle from this point too, and it can be of any radius, any specific distance. Okay, so our next postulate is all the right angles, they are equal to one another. Okay, so what is that means? We already know that basically the right angles are those angles which have the angle equal to 90 degree. We can explain them with the help of the Pythagoras theorem. As you people have seen in your earlier classes, this one is your height, this one is your base, this is your hypotenuse, and we called it as a perpendicular. Sorry, it is represented by P perpendicular, right? And we have seen in the in the previous classes that p square plus b square equals to h square. So this is basically applicable for all the right triangles. That is why the right triangles, they are always equals to one another. Okay, the fifth and the important one is, if a straight line falling on two straight line makes the interior angle on the same side of it taken together less than the right angle, then the two straight line, if produced indefinitely, meet on that side on which the sum of angle is less than the two right angles. Okay, so this one is complicated and I'll explain you this postulate with the help of the diagram only, so you people could better understand. Okay, so let's just now move forward and see about these postulates, right? So let's just start with these postulates. Okay, so our first postulate is, so before just going on the postulate number 5, we'll first tell you about the all the postulates we have discussed in the previous slide with the help of the pictures, and then I'll come back to you with the postulate number 5. Okay, which is a little bit complicated and require the drawing of some pictures, right? So this is what the postulate number 1 is. So what was the postulate number 1? The postulate number 1 was a straight line can be drawn from any point to any point. So basically this is a point A and this is a point P. So the straight line L is drawn between the point A and point P. Then also this N line is also drawn, M and P, Q, R. These are the lines which are basically drawn between the 2 points. So this is what the postulate number 1 is saying. Okay, so the postulate number 2 was that a terminated line can be produced indefinitely. So the Mn was the line. Okay, it was terminated. These are the two end points of this particular line, M and N. They are the end point of this line. So they can be produced indefinitely, like they are produced towards right, and they can also be produced indefinitely towards left. Okay, so this is what the postulate number 2 is saying. Okay, let's just now move forward with postulate number 3. So the postulate number 3 was that any circle could be drawn from any point or with any specific radius. So like you can see, there are 3 circles shown in this particular picture, and all the 3 circles, they are of different radius. This is of moderate radius, this is of comparatively larger radius, this is comparatively smaller radius. So you can draw, and this is like from this point O, this circle is drawn from this point, we can name it as O dash, and this particular circle is drawn from this point called as O double dash. So basically these 3 circles, they are formed from the 3 different points. Okay, they are formed from 3 different points, and they are also of the different radius. This is what the postulate number 3 is trying to say. So let's just now move towards the postulate number 4. Okay, so this is what they are saying, that all the right angles are equal, as I explained to you that according to the Pythagoras theorem, this is basically the hypotenuse, this is the perpendicular part, and this is the base part. So from that part, AB square plus BC square will be equal to AC square according to the Pythagoras theorem, and in this particular triangle, PQ square plus QR square equals to PR square. So basically both of these triangles, they are similar to each other by RHS rule. Okay, this was basically right angle, hypotenuse and side rule. You don't have to explain or try to understand about this RHS rule. I just tell you about this RHS rule in some other chapter. I just mentioned it here so that you people could know the reason behind the equal of these right angles. Okay, so right angles are always equal because in case of the right angle triangle, the both of the angles are 90 degree. That is why the right angles are always equals to one another. So this is what we understand in the postulate number 4. So let's just now move forward with postulate number 5. This is a very complicated one, and this is also very important one, we can also say like this. Okay, so basically there are 2 lines. Okay, these are the 2 lines, we can name it as AB and CD. So according to this, if a straight line is falling on 2 straight lines, these are the 2 straight lines, yeah, these are the 2 straight lines, and if a particular line falls on the straight line, let this particular single line be PQ. Okay, so they make the interior angle, these are the interior angle, and on the same side will be these both two, angle 1 and angle 2 will be the interior angle on the both side of the particular line. Okay, if they are together less than two right angles, so you people know that one right angle is equals to 90 degree. So obviously the two right angles, they will be equal to 180 degree. The sum of the two right angles will be 180 degree. So these people are saying that if the sum of both of them, it means angle 1 plus angle 2, is less than 180 degree. They are trying to say that if the angle 1 and 2 they are less than 180 degree, then these A and C, they are produced further to meet at a particular point. You can produce like this, and you can also produce this line as this. So they particularly meet at this point. We can call this point as E, right? We can call this point as E. So this is the point. So they tell that if the angle 1 plus angle 2 is less than 180 degree, then the lines are produced to meet. These lines, they are produced to meet at a particular point E. Okay, and they both will make the angle sum equal to the two right angle. So they both will make angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 equals to 180 degree. This is what they meant, that if the sum of the angle is not equal to 180 degree, if the sum of the two interior angle present on the line is not equal to 180 degree, then in that case both the lines, they will produced further to meet at a certain point, and the angle formed at that certain point will be added with the two other anterior angle, and they all will be like equal to the two right angles. This is what they meant from the fifth postulate. So let's just revise this again. What was the fifth postulate? That if the two straight lines are there and one simple line is falling on those two straight line, make an interior angle less than two right angles. It means these interior angle sum is less than 180 degree. Then both the lines, they will produce indefinitely to meet at a particular point, and all the three angles, they will be equal to the 180 degree, right? And they also, this particular fifth postulate also explains that if the angle 1 and 2, the sum of the angle 1 and 2 is equals to 180, then they both will be the parallel lines. They both won't move forward or produced forward. For an example, they were the two lines. This was the PQ1, this was AB, this was CD. So if the interior angles, in the sum of these interior angles is equal to 180, okay, in that case they won't move forward. They are known as the parallel lines. Okay, this is what you have to study in the fifth postulate. Okay, so these are the basically equivalent version of the fifth postulate. Let's just now move with this. These are the equivalent version of the fifth postulate. For every line L and every point P not lying on L, okay, there exists a unique line passing M passing through P and parallel to L. So let's just say there is a line, this is the line L. Okay, there is a point P and it do not lie on the L. This is the point P and they do not lie on the point on the line L. This is the line L and this is the point P. This is the point P and this is the line L. So there exists a unique line. There is a line which passes, let's just draw with some another color so that you people could understand. This is the line passing through the point P. Let it be M. So this L is parallel to M. This is not 11, this is the sign of the parallel lines. Okay, what are the parallel lines? basically the lines which are the mirror reflection of each other with the equal distance at all the points. There is a equal distance between all the points. This is known as the parallel lines. Okay, you can also learn to hear about another lines like this, the kind of lines. These are the lines which meet at a particular point and we call them as intersecting lines. Just learn about the parallel and intersecting lines. These are very important in the geometry. You will get to learn about these kind of line in your next chapter, lines and angles. Okay, in the triangles you will learn about certain theories, theorems. Okay, so this is what the line is. If a point is not lying on this line, then a particular line will be passing through this particular point and they both will be parallel to each other. This is the first equivalent version of the fifth postulate. Okay, so why this is like the fifth postulate's equivalent version. In the fifth postulate we also learn about this parallel system, that if the angles were equal to 180 degree, if both the sum of the angle equals to 180 degree, then the lines are always parallel to each other. Okay, now two distinct intersecting lines cannot be parallel to the same line. This is the intersecting line. Intersecting lines are basically those lines which form a cross. They basically meet at a certain point, like in this case O is the point where they intersect each other. If these are the intersect lines are basically the opposite lines. They always go in opposite directions of each other, right? They always go in the opposite direction of each other. So intersecting lines, they can't be parallel to the same line. So let's just say this line is P and this line is Q. Okay, so for P there exists this line A, so P is parallel to A, and for Q there exists this line like B, so Q is parallel to B. But P and Q can't be parallel to each other. They can't be parallel. Why? Because they are intersecting line. You just have to remind one thing, that intersecting line, let me just write it down. Please note it down, people. These are very important and little information you have to know, okay, about the chapter, because they form your basis. They form a basic concept of the geometry, and geometry is something which is very difficult in the mathematics. Okay, you need to like prove something. So this is not a numerical part. The geometry will be some proof part or some theorem part. So you just have to know these basic intersecting lines. They can't be parallel. They can never be parallel to each other, like never be parallel. Okay, and parallel lines, they can't meet each other. They can't intersect each other. They can't meet each other. You just have to note down the 2 points, that intersecting and the parallel lines are just the opposites. This is the parallel lines which are the mirror image of each other, and the intersecting lines are basically the crossing lines. So they can't be parallel to each other. They can't be intersecting to each other. This is what they mean from the equivalent version of the fifth postulate. Now, as I already told you that this chapter does not have the relevant sums or the questions, I'm just explaining the single example here, because in this chapter only theory is there and I have explained you all the postulates, all the exams. You just have to read those postulates and exams very carefully, and in case of doubt you just have to inform me and I will just get back to you. You just have to comment down and the description is in the link, and I'll just come back to you and I'll answer all your queries and all your questions, right? So there is a very important question in this chapter, the only question of this chapter which is relevant for you people. So the question is, the proof that an equilateral triangle can be constructed on any given line segment. Okay, so before starting with the question, let's just have some basic knowledge of an equilateral triangle, right? This is the equilateral triangle ABC. So in the case of equilateral triangle, you just have to know few points. All the sides are equal. This is the very important point for an equilateral triangle. Okay, next is angle A equals to angle B equals to angle C, which is equals to 60 degree. From the Euclid's fifth postulate, I told you that when the two angles they are not equals to 180 degree, then they move forward to a particular point and meet at a particular point, and the sum of all these three angle is equal to 180 degree. So for that, the picture they form is the triangle only. When we just like these are the two lines and these were the intersecting, so they were move forward and they generally meet at this point, so that is what they form, that is a triangle. This is a particular triangle. Okay, so this is what you have to know. This is about the triangle, and in the case of equilateral triangle, all the sides are equal and all the angles are 160, all the angles are 60 degree, and the sum is equals to 180. So equilateral triangle with this triangle with all the sides equal. How do we prove this thing with the help of geometry? We are only given a particular line AB of any length. Okay. So what we have to do is, we just have to like take a compass. Okay, we are taking a compass. We just put a needle of the compass on the point A. This is the point A. Put the compass here. You just open the compass up to point P. Open the compass up to point P. Okay, then just rotate the compass and draw the circle. This is how I'm just representing the drawing of circle with the help of dotted lines. I just can't draw the circle here with the help of the compass. So for the better understanding, I'm drawing with the help of dotted lines. Let's suppose this was the circle drawn, this was the half circle. You can just complete the circle out. Okay, now what you have to do is just put the compass here, then again open the compass up to this radius and put the pencil here, and you just have to draw the another circle. This is what the another circle will look like. Okay, so there is this point where these both circles or both these arcs they meet with each other, right? What you have to do, you just have to join this point with A and join this point with B and name this point as C. So this is the equilateral triangle with all the angles equals to 60 degree and all the sides equal to each other, right? So let's just explain you these steps. Okay, so this is the last part of our today's class. So just draw the line segment AB of any length, take the compass, put the pointy end at this point A and put the pencil at point B. It means that you just have to open the compass for this length. For the length of AB, you just have to open the compass and draw an arc. Just don't need to draw an arc, draw a circle. Okay, so here we draw the circle or the arc. Now put this point or put this compass point at point B and put the pencil at point A with the radius open and like AB. Then again draw the circle again. So there will be a point where these intersecting, these arcs they are like intersecting, or these arcs are like crossing with each other, and name this as C. Okay, so now what you have to do is you just have to make the lines you just have to join AC and BC, and like this you will form a equilateral triangle. So this is what we have formed, like the equilateral triangle. Okay, so this is what is about the Euclid's geometry. In case of any doubts and queries, you can just comment down below, and thank you. This is your chapter and I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you.